Hi everyone, and welcome to Algebra 2. In this video we're going to review operations with polynomials, specifically adding and subtracting. In order to be successful with adding and subtracting polynomials, you need to be comfortable with the following vocabulary. So please take a moment to read it over, and towards the end of the page you'll see some fill-ins. So I'd like you to read a little bit about what a degree is, and then find the degrees and leading coefficients for all of these polynomials or monomials. And now let's move on to the next page. Okay, so adding polynomials. This is something that you should have seen before. This is just a review. So just to refresh, the first thing that they're asking for, number one, it's saying let f of x be defined as this function and g of x be defined as this function. And they want you to find h of x, which is the sum of f of x and g of x. Now just to recall, sum means to add. So we want to add f of x and g of x together. So I'm going to rewrite f of x as 17x to the fourth plus 8x squared minus 9x to the seventh plus 4 minus 2x to the third plus g of x, 11x to the third minus 8x squared plus 12. Now, it doesn't matter, but to make it look more appropriate, you'll want to put parentheses around the two things that you're adding together. Now, when you write the sum, or the answer to the addition problem, you want to make sure you put the highest exponent first. So if you look at all of the exponents here, the highest exponent is 7. And I don't see any other 7s that I can add with it, so my first term is actually this guy right here, negative 9x to the 7th. So that part's done. Now we'll move down to the next highest power, which I see here is x to the 4th. And I don't see any other x to the 4th that I can add to it, so I'm just going to bring down a positive 17x to the 4th. Because see, this term 17 is positive. And that term is done. Okay, so now I'm going to move to the x to the third term, and I see here that there are two of them. There's a negative 2x to the third and a positive 11x to the third. And when I add that together, I simply get a positive 9x to the third. What you do is you keep the base with the power, and you add or subtract the coefficients. Okay, now those are done. Now I'm going to move on to the x squared term. I have a positive 8x squared and a negative 8x squared. And those actually add up to 0. When I have 8 of something and I take away 8 of something, it's just 0. And then the last thing I'm left with are the constants, or the numbers. I have a positive 4 here and a positive 12 here, and when I add those, I get 16. So this is my h of x function. So we can write here on the line that h of x equals negative 9x to the 7th plus 17x to the 4th plus 9x to the 3rd plus 16. Now, if you read the front, you'll understand the question saying here, what is the degree and leading coefficient of h of x? Well, the degree is the exponent, and the leading coefficient is the number in front. And this is always of the term that has the highest power. So, the term that has the highest power is negative 9x to the 7th. The power, the 7, is the degree. So degree is 7, and I'm going to abbreviate leading coefficient as LC, and my leading coefficient is the number in front, which is negative 9. And that's it. So what I'd like you to do for homework is to try number 2, parts A and B, and we will go over that tomorrow in class. I'd like to move on to the next page to take care of subtracting. Okay, so remember that subtracting is the same thing as adding the opposite. Okay, so let's see. For number 1, part A, it says find h of x. The difference, again, remember difference means subtraction. So find the difference of f of x and g of x. So I have these two things that I would like to subtract. So we'll use parentheses, just like before. But now this time, we're subtracting the two. Okay, so we have to remember, before we can add these two things together, we have to make sure that subtracting changes to adding the opposite. So adding the opposite sign. So every sign gets changed. So I'm going to keep everything in the first parenthesis, so I'm going to bring that down. 12x to the third plus 5x minus 8x squared plus 19. Bring down this plus sign, and then I have a negative 6x squared, a positive 9x, a negative 3, and a positive 18x to the third. So same thing as before, we're going to start with the highest exponent, and it looks like the highest exponent is x to the third. So I have 12x to the third plus 18x to the third. And if you add those together, you'll get 30x to the third. The next highest power looks like x squared. So I have a negative 8x squared and a negative 6x squared. And when you add those together, you get a negative 14x squared. Then it looks like my next term are my x's, which I have a positive 5x and a positive 9x. And when you add those together, you get 14x. And then last but not least is 19, which is the numbers, constants, 19 plus a negative 3, or in other words, 19 minus 3, which is a positive 16. So this is our final answer, which we can write as h of x. So h of x is equal to 30x to the third minus 14x squared plus 14x plus 16. And again, the degree is the highest exponent, right, highest exponent, and the leading coefficient is the number in front. So for degree, we can say is 3 because it's the highest exponent, and our leading coefficient, which we can abbreviate as LC, our leading coefficient is the number in front, which is the 30. So that is our final answer. What I'd like you to do for homework also is question number 2, both parts A and B. I just want you to try them. If you don't understand it, don't worry, but I still want you to put something down. This won't be graded, and we'll see you tomorrow in class. Have a good night.